Hey, this is Matt Stohrer and I repair saxophones for a living. Today, I would like to show you a 1928 Conn New Wonder Series 2 Soprano, an original silver plate. This is also the original case, but first I want to talk about what people call these. People call these the Chu Berry sometimes, and that is incorrect on a number of levels. I'm a stickler for this type of stuff, so I want to tell you why. Leon Chu Berry was a tenor saxophonist who was very, very good. Unfortunately, he died young, so a lot of people don't know about him. But he played with Cab Calloway, Fletcher Henderson, and Benny Carter. He was actually a very large influence on Charlie Parker, who even named his first son Leon after Leon Chu Berry. Now, Chu Berry did play a Conn tenor saxophone, but he didn't play a New Wonder Series 2. He actually played a transitional. There was a model of about 20,000 serial numbers between the end of this instrument and the beginning of the 10M, 6M, the Artist Series, also called Naked Ladies sometimes, instruments, and he played one of those. So it's kind of similar to this. It's actually an evolution of this between this and the next model, but he did not play a New Wonder Series 2. And he definitely didn't play a soprano. But as you'll notice from my description for this video, because so many people call them Chu Berries, if you want to talk to people about these instruments who are not already experts, then you kind of have to call it a Chu Berry so people know what you're talking about. So a lot of times you'll see these called Chu Berries on eBay, on YouTube, which I'm doing right now, which is just terrible. But it sort of has to be done. So the instrument itself. This is their soprano version. You can always tell the New Wonder Series 2 because it has the nail file G sharp. The model before this looks very similar, but it has a smooth G sharp. And the M Series instruments that come after this have a completely redesigned pinky cluster. Now, as far as how these instruments play, they play excellent. They have a very big, rich, complex voice. They can fill a room pretty easy. The ergonomics are all right, nothing too awful, nothing too great. When they're in good shape, such as this one is, and just overhauled, such as this one is, they have a very light, fast key action. They feel really good under the fingers, although in the sopranos, the pearls are a little small, especially on the B here. It feels a little strange, and as you'll notice, there's no front F here. The bis is a little bit far from the B, but not too far that you can't roll it. On the tenor, though, this actually becomes a problem. The distance between this is so big that a lot of times your finger can get stuck between. But on soprano, it's not a big deal. The pinky table, it's not too bad. Nothing too awesome about it. One weird thing is that this is one really long rod here. And this key in particular often gets hit this way, and it can get bent. And it's very tough to straighten out this long tube with the long rod running down it so that it's nice and smooth and fast again. So that's something to watch out for. Another thing to watch out for, as far as repair goes, is the F sharp on the lower stack barely has any key barrel. It's mostly key arm. There's just a tiny little bit of key barrel on it. If these have been worn or damaged, it can be tough to get this tight again. And if you want your lower stack to play right, if you want to have this closed accurately when you press the F, when you press the E to play F sharp, or when you go from one to the other and have everything seal and feel good, this has to be totally perfect, and that can be tough to do if it's been damaged in the past. You might actually have to manufacture key barrels, remanufacture key barrels, and install new ones in here. And that can be costly. Another thing to note is that the upper stack is on this long rod here, and you've got everything up here mounted on it. And to get everything so that it's totally tight, so that you don't have any play in the mechanism, can be a challenge, especially if there's a lot of wear, or if it's been bent up here, which is quite often. You've got a rod going from here to here. If there's a bend anywhere in between, if it bends this way, it bends everything apart. If it bends this way, then it bends everything together and everything gets bound up. So that's something to watch out for. Getting the horn straight needs to be done, and then everything needs to be fit correctly. You can't just hammer posts back and forth until it fits. It has to be, the foundation has to be correct, and then the mechanics have to be correct. Everything has to be straight, symmetrical, right angles. You want them to move, you want the keys to move absolutely effortlessly in only one axis. Don't want any of this, don't want any of this, just like this. Another thing to watch out for is the octave mechanism. It's the old style soprano octave mechanism where you've got two octave keys here. That's your automatic octave mechanism. Now, normally on an alto or tenor, this would be your neck octave key. This would be your body octave key. Now, you'll see when I depress the octave key, the neck octave key opens up. When I depress the G, it switches to the body, to the neck. Now, the way this works, you've got two arms in the octave key that hold both of these down. On the G, you've got one arm that holds the body octave key down and one arm that pushes the neck octave key closed. So you see when I depress this and then activate the G, it allows this to open while pushing this closed. And this has to be absolutely perfect. If it's not perfect, either this is going to be open and your G is going to be shut, and that way you're going to have both octave keys open and your upper octave or lower octave is not going to speak. Or this is going to close, but the G is not going to be closed all the way if this is too tight. And then you're going to have a leak in your G, or it's just going to feel really bad. So you can hear that pop there, and you can see how that instantly moves at the same time. This mechanism has to be done perfectly in order for the horn to feel right. Otherwise, it's going to feel bad in the fingers, it's going to be leaky, the octaves aren't going to work, all that. Side keys, nothing really to report here. They're in a pretty good spot. More comfortable than a Mark VI anyways, although they're still a little bit high. The palm keys are a little bit low. You can see, hold it this way, they're pretty far under the hand. And you do have to move, especially for F, you kind of have to move your fingers off the pearls. So you can either build these up with like epoxy or cork, or you can put risers on them, or you can just get used to it. And this is about factory settings. I pulled them up a little bit. As far as intonation on this horn goes, it's not awesome, but it's flexible. So while you can't just blow into it and have it play perfectly in tune or very close to in tune like you can on a Yamaha or Yanagisawa or most modern horns, it's extremely flexible. So if you had a good embouchure and a good ear, you can play this in tune without even really realizing that you're making the adjustments, because you can lip it up or down almost a half pitch, depending on how good of a player you are on each note. It's just a very, very flexible horn as far as intonation goes. So it can be played in tune, but it takes an ear and a little bit of skill with your embouchure. Also, these horns in particular, I mean, this is good to do on every horn. Playing with an open throat is very important. And an easy way to tell if you're playing with an open throat is blow on your hand. If it's cold air, that's a closed throat. If it's hot air, that's an open throat. So blow on your hand, do hot, cold, and feel the difference in your throat when you do the hot air. That's your throat opening up, and you're blowing from your diaphragm underneath your lungs. And if you're used to controlling your airflow by restricting your throat, you're going to find that difficult for a little while, because your diaphragm is not going to have the control that you need in order to play the horn well and go from pianissimo to fortissimo without feeling like you're about to make a big mistake. But that is the way to play. When you blow hot air, that means your throat's open, control with your diaphragm, not with your throat. Although obviously you're making small adjustments in your throat, it shouldn't be the main way that you control airflow. Let's see. So yeah, we talked about intonation, we talked about the mechanics. This is an original silver plate. They came in all different finishes. The Soprano, actually, interestingly, after the stock market crash, 1929, after the Great Depression, so a year after this was made, Conn really pulled back on making Sopranos. They made a little bit during the 30s, but since they weren't as popular of an instrument and they needed to keep making money, they made mostly alto, tenor, baritone. So most of the Sopranos you see from Conn are going to be pre-Depression Sopranos. And this one is 1928, which is just before. So this is just prior to the Great Depression. This is original silver, original finish, original everything, original engraving. It's got gold wash in the bell. This also has the original case, which is interesting. You can see that it's got a spot for a lyre here for marching. I don't know why you'd really want to march with a soprano. It's got the original mouthpiece here, original mouthpiece cover. And the original mouthpieces for these are, as you can see, stubby large chamber, lots of volume inside here, and they have the Conn USA and Eagle trademark. Eagle was actually the symbol of the union that worked at Conn that made these instruments. And you see also here we've got something interesting. This is a screwdriver that came with it. Now I'm not sure if this is original. It doesn't say Conn or anything on it, but it fits so perfectly in its little spot here that I feel like it might be original equipment. But who knows? Well, it did fit perfectly until I took it out. So I have this nice wood shell case, although the problem with this is, you see how much movement there is in here. Now, if you try and hit this on the outside with a hammer, as long as you don't hit too hard, this wood is pretty good. It's going to protect it. But when any instrument can move around this much, it's going to gather inertia. So if you drop the case, although the case might not be damaged, the horn is still slamming from one side to the other. And particularly on a soprano, what you're going to have is the body's going to bend a little bit. And because of what I talked about with the long rods, that's something that you really want to avoid. I mean, you want to avoid it in general, but especially on one of these horns, that would be a real pain in the butt to fix, because usually the bend happens right around here, like from here to here. And if you do that, then you've got problems in your long rods here and your long rod here. So that's something you really want to avoid. Oh, another thing to note is that you've got a round thumb ring here, which is actually pretty comfortable, but no neck strap hook. Now, these are pretty light horns, but your thumb will get fatigued if you hold it like this versus like this. You really need to be careful about how you hold it. If you put your thumb like that so that it's arched, you're going to get tired pretty fast and you're going to feel it in your joints. You really have to kind of practice to keep sort of a flexed thumb versus bent like this. As far as pad selection, I usually find that flat metal resonators work best on these. That's what they originally came with the Reso pads. You don't need to use Reso pads, although you can. I don't really find too much of a benefit to them. I use regular pads of flat metal resonators and nice light action, very firm pads you can hear. Feels really good under the finger, especially because the action is so light. It's just very firm. The rolled tone holes. Now this one is in excellent physical condition, and you'll see this again and again. The rolled tone holes, because of the way they're manufactured, it's very difficult to get them flat. So something to be aware of when you're repairing these is whether or not they're in excellent original physical condition or not, you're probably going to have some tone holes that are unlevel, and you have to learn to work with that. Obviously, on a horn that's been damaged, you're going to find that more often. But even on a horn like this that's pretty much perfect condition, you're still going to find some unlevel tone holes, and you've got some decisions to make based upon your particular situation with that particular tone hole as to how you deal with it. But that's something to be aware of, that you're probably going to be dealing with unlevel tone holes no matter what. And I believe that's about it. So this is the Conn New Wonder Series 2 Soprano Saxophone, freshly overhauled by me. Plays great, big sound. Intonation can be a little bit tough to control, particularly the upper end of the second octave. Around A to C is kind of stereotypically where they're not doing so hot. But very flexible intonation, which means you can control it. So it gives and it takes. But yeah, you can find these for around between $1,000 and $2,000 depending on condition. They're very good horns. They sound really, really nice. They just take a bit of effort to make them play in tune. The altos and tenors are similar, although the intonation is not as much of an issue because the horns are bigger, which means that the ratio of the hertz, the vibrations per second, between the different notes is lower. As you go up in pitch, the number of vibrations per second difference from one note to the next actually increases. So higher notes, higher instruments, as any piccolo player can tell you, you really have to have a good ear to keep them in tune. So a soprano sax like this, which is not great in tune, you really got to keep your ear trained for it. But I don't have an issue playing it, and I'm not even the world's best saxophone player. So if you're a decent horn player, you should be able to wrangle one of these into your control, and you'll be rewarded with a very rich, pleasant, room-filling sound that you don't really find on modern sopranos. The altos and tenors are also really good horns. The ergonomics are, not awesome, but they're not bad either. And you can get one of these fairly cheap compared to a lot of other horns, and the sound is great, and get them repaired by someone who knows what they're doing, particularly with respect to these horns, and you'll have yourself an excellent sounding professional saxophone for much less than you might spend otherwise, especially on a new horn or, say, a vintage Selmer, which you basically have to sell your kidneys to get one. So that's about it for today. My name is Matt Stohrer. I repair saxophones for a living. I hope this was informative and helpful and useful. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, you want to tell me a joke, get in touch through my website, storemusic.com. You can email me, storemusic@gmail.com. You can give me a call. My number is on my website. You can leave a comment here. Anything I can help you with saxophonically, just let me know, from repairs to helping you make a decision about what to buy. Anything. I love saxophones, so anything I can help you with, just let me know. All right. Thanks so much.